Despite Arsenal not being able to claim their first Premier League title in 20 years, it was overall a very good season for the team. Much improvement was shown throughout it, and next season I am sure that they can go again for the league title. However, which players were the ones that were more important than others, and which players maybe didn't have the best season? Today I'm going to rank every single Arsenal player's season and potentially decide which ones should be sold or which ones should get more time. Let's get into it. Now overall I have selected 6 different categories that I'm going to base them off this season, being player of the season, which is going to be the best player or maybe the best 3 players of the year. We're going to have one of the best, so a player that's helped Arsenal a lot this season, someone that's been very important but not maybe a starting player fully, and we've got on and off, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad, alright sometimes, where they maybe have had a couple of good performances but haven't really had much impact, and an awful season, someone that has barely played and barely got much time to prove themselves. So first of all, we're going to look at the goalkeepers. Now there's only really 2 people to talk about, being Aaron Ramsdale and David Raya. Now I've spoke about David Raya a lot, and he obviously had a lot of controversy when he came into the club, and he has played 41 games this season, playing 3,700 minutes. Compare this to the 11 games that Ramsdale's played, being at 990 minutes, and I think he started the 4 Premier League games of the season at the start. It's safe to say David Raya is definitely the number 1, and I expect him to be bought permanently this summer. Now first, we probably got to talk about Ramsdale being pushed out to the side, and even when he does play, he hasn't had a great year. He hasn't really proved himself. He's made some good saves, but I think about all the games he's played against Brentford, I think he's played 3. He's made consistent mistakes passing the ball out. And while his confidence is definitely down and he hasn't really been able to prove himself over a long time like Raya, who's also made mistakes, obviously his catching isn't as good, and I think it's quite clear that he probably isn't at the level of Raya right now, or at least the right fit for this team overall. So I think I'm going to put Ramsdale in awful season. I don't think it could have been a worse season for him, getting pushed out of the team, barely played, and not even playing well when he plays. I think for the standards that he had last season, I think this is a very, very poor year. And comparatively to David Raya, I'm going to give David Raya a very important, because I wouldn't say he's one of our best players. I think he got the Golden Glove mostly because of the defense, and he still took quite a while to adapt and learn and not make mistakes. But his catching, his focus on the ball is much better, and I think overall it has made us a better team going forward, and he is the right man for that job. So I would say he's very important in the team right now. Now we're moving on to the real key part of the team. We've got the defenders here being Saliba, Ben White, Gabriel, Timber, Kivior, Cedric, Tomiyasu and Zinchenko. First of all, William Saliba, what can you say about him? So many people are saying he's probably our 2nd or 3rd best player of the season, and I definitely think he is. One of the reasons the defense has been so successful is because we have one of the best young defenders in the world in our defense. He played 50 games and started 50 games in all competitions this year, and he's got 4,500 minutes and played every single minute in the Premier League season, which a lot of players haven't done in a while. I think his passing has taken another level this year. It's got even better, and under pressure he is starting to get more accustomed to these big atmospheres and get better in big games, which is so important going for the future. And I think he comes with him. I think you have to put Gabriel with Saliba. I think both of them together make each other better, and I don't really like comparing each one. I think Saliba's a better footballer, but I think both of them have had an equally really good season this year, so I don't really want to compare them. Gabriel has really turned around a corner. I think he's got better and better every year, and I think this year was the best we've seen. And he's a real leader back there, really helps Saliba get along, and he played most games this season, starting 48 and playing 50 as well, just 150 minutes behind Saliba. And that was mostly because we didn't play him at the start of the season because we were testing our tactics out. But he is such a goal threat as well, such a physical threat in the air, and is so good aerially while also being a brilliant passer. Both of them have had a brilliant season, and I think they both have to be in one of the best this season. I think you can't really replace them. Them 2 are so important for the club. Now, because these 2 have basically played every single game at centre back, we basically go straight onto the fullbacks then. And first of all, I'm going to say Timber had an awful season. Now, what is there to say? He didn't play until the last few minutes of the season and the start of the season. He was injured the whole time. That is a pretty bad season, but it's obviously not his fault. And next, you're going to go for someone like Cedric. I would also say awful season. I mean, he actually played a couple of times this year, which I guess is better for him, but I mean, he shouldn't have been at the club anyway. He's on way too much wages and he doesn't play and he's not good enough. And to finish off the potential right backs, we've had Ben White, who's pretty much played every single game there this season. Now, he had a knock at the start of the year, which is well documented, and he wasn't necessarily playing very well and weren't really going forward. In the latter half of the season, we've really shown the best of Ben White, and I think he's actually been one of our best players this season. I would put him in one of the best because I think you can't get any better than him. He's a solid player. player. He's got the mentality that we need, the physicality, and he's so good going forward and on the ball. He's one of the most important players in our team and helps us build up a lot because they trust him on the ball. I've done so many videos about Ben White, but I think he's a brilliant player and I think he's definitely one of the best. And I think them three defenders are the reason why we had so many goals, little conceded. Now it's probably the most hardest bit about the defence. The three left backs that we've played this year being Zinchenko, Tomiyasu and Kiwior. Now in all competitions, Zinchenko's actually played around 2,000 minutes, Kiwior's played around 1,500 and Tomiyasu's played around 1,600. So it's very level actually between the three players. But I think this is kind of up to your interpretation. I think for me, Kiwior's been on and off. I think he was really poor, he couldn't invert and he wasn't very good at that left back role. But we made it work with the adaptations of Ben White getting better and helping us in that tactical switch. And Kiwior definitely proved his worth. I think in that Porto game, I did read about it, he was amazing in. But after that, he necessarily didn't live up to it. I think against Bayern, he was particularly quite poor. I think Zinchenko, I would say he's been alright sometimes because the levels that he had last year, I think this year has been a big drop off. And I think a lot of fans have turned on him and people aren't necessarily happy with him in the team. He can't defend and it is a liability. And with the brilliant passes we have around the team, I think it's got to the point where people don't really want him in the squad and he might be sold. Although I do think he can be helpful when Arsenal do have the ball still. And Tomiyasu, I'm going to say very important because I actually think Tomiyasu has been more impactful than the other two, even playing less minutes than Zinchenko. And I think Tomiyasu, you can see on left back, is not his actual position. It's centre back and then right back. The fact he's done better than the other two who are left footers there, it shows how good he is and can be so versatile. His injury problems have cost us a little bit and he hasn't played a lot where we would expect him to. But even with all three of them being fit in the last 6 to 7 games of the season, Tomiyasu has played, which I think shows that Arteta thinks Tomiyasu is better than the other two and he got a new contract. And I think overall I'd say he had a better season, even getting our player of the month for 1 month. But before we get into that, I am so happy to announce this video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Surfshark is an app and browser extension which allows you to essentially place your computer or phone anywhere in the world, so you can access the internet as if you are actually in that country. This allows you to access websites and content that may be region restricted. For example, a personal favourite of mine is being able to watch American sport highlights on devices such as Amazon Prime, which would not be available in the UK version. It also encrypts your online data to add an extra layer of security when you're online to keep all your passwords, videos and photos safe. The reason why Surfshark is incredible is it is the only VPN to offer one account to use on a limited number of devices. So if that sounds good and you are interested, you can use my code Woklz to get 84% off plus 3 months extra free, which is a brilliant deal. And if you're still undecided, there is a 30-day money back guarantee. So if you're not satisfied, you can cancel in the first 30 days. And if you're interested in that, you can go to surfshark.deals/Woklz for more or click the link in the description. These deals are massive for the channel and I wouldn't recommend something I wouldn't use myself. So thank you for Surfshark for sponsoring. Next, we're going to move into the midfield. The first player we're going to talk about is Thomas Partey. Obviously, really injured yet again for the whole season when we needed him. Really ruined the tactics, made us play Havertz in midfield. And ultimately, if Partey didn't get injured, would we have lost the league? Probably not. But he did come in at the end of the season and help us. He obviously started 10 games, all near really the end of the season other than the start. And I think he was very important at the end. I don't think he was necessarily brilliant. I think he was alright. I think he helps us more tactically than he does as an actual good player. He is a better player in thought rather than in motion. And I thought against Everton last game season, he was particularly poor. And I think we will sell him in the summer, which I think is needed. Overall, though, I'm going to give him alright sometimes because he definitely did help us in some of them big games such as Chelsea and Tottenham. And I won't forget that. So he definitely deserves that overall. Now, next, we might as well go through some of the squad players. So El Nene, you know, alright sometimes, I guess. He didn't actually play at all, but El Nene was never going to play and he's good for the back room. Smith Rowe, I would say pretty much an awful season and I don't think it's his fault. I think when he's played, he's actually looked alright and even the last game of the season, I think he looked quite inspiring. But he hasn't got the game time and I don't think the free midfield is better for him. I don't think it suits his role particularly and we need more defenders in there where people are actually going to go back. And obviously Smith Rowe does a little bit, but not as much as I think Arteta would want, so he doesn't get game time. And I'm going to put Fabio Vieira in alright sometimes because I think we all still expect a lot more from him and he actually at the start of the season started to provide that off the bench. He was very good. I was very impressed. But then he picked up that injury, was out for way longer than we thought he was going to be, and then he never got back in the team. He never got chose again, which I don't really think is his fault. Yet again, it's a tactical problem. If Odegaard was going to be injured, then these two would have played more, but he wasn't. And I think Fabio Vieira actually showed quite good levels at the start of the year compared to what Smith Rowe did in the games he played, but I don't think it's all Smith Rowe's fault. That's why I put Fabio Vieira a little bit higher and then Smith Rowe. However, now we are getting into some of the best players of the season. Martin Odegaard is obviously first. A lot of people think he's our player of the season. He's a lot of people's team of the seasons. I think he's been brilliant. Yet again, don't think the role necessarily suits him perfectly, but the fact he's been able to create so much, be so good at bringing the ball up, he's so important for Arsenal in every phase, and he's so good at pressing other teams in, being our best presser in the side, makes him very important, and people might discredit that. I think they're a little bit stupid, and I think Odegaard has a shout to be our player of the season, definitely. I don't think I would give it to him, but he's definitely in one of the best for me. Next is Jorginho. Now, Jorginho is a player that I did not expect to really play much this season. I think anyone did. I don't think Arteta really did. Last season, he barely got much game time. He came in when we needed him to and looked a bit leggy in some games. And at the start of this year, when he was poor in that Tottenham game, I think that was kind of the end for him. However, he has been so important when we needed him this year, with obviously the injuries we've had and the Havertz not working in midfield. We had to try a double pivot, and he was the player that we used it with. He played 1,600 minutes, 19 starts this season in all competitions, but was mainly very starting in the Premier League. I think he not only made Rice a better player and helped Rice to adapt and develop, I think he gives a lot of experience there for us, and I think in not every game he's going to be the best option because he's not as mobile as some players, but he gives us that solid back line where we can help, and he's very good at his long passing, which is very important for the team. I think comparatively to how much we signed Jorginho and what we expected from him and how much he actually provided this season, I'd say he's been very important for us this year, and I can understand why he got that new deal completely. The next is Declan Rice. Now, Declan Rice is someone you just run out of words to describe. One of the best players I've ever seen play for Arsenal, and as a defensive midfielder, that is an incredible feat. 105 mil is a lot of money to spend on him, but they knew what they were doing, and I knew when we signed him, his guy was going to be special, and he definitely is. In my opinion, he's probably our player of the season. I know people think it's a cop-out, I've said this before, but Declan Rice is an amazing player that has helped the team not only look better, we've looked more solid than we did last year, and in the end, we actually have got more points and been better than last year completely. So Declan Rice to me is the player of the season for Arsenal. Now, going into the attack, there's definitely a lot of different stories here. Some have been really good, some have been quite poor. Overall, Arsenal have scored an insane amount of goals this season, and we've probably created even more. That's why a lot of the midfielders are very high as well. First of all, I'm going to give Martinelli a on and off season. Now, this may seem a little bit even beneficially to him because I don't think he's had a particularly good year. Only got 6 goals, of course, and got 8 goals in all competitions with 5 assists. Now, considering he's played more minutes than Trossard, he's only got 2,600 minutes, and his XG is around 8, so maybe he is scoring about what you expect. I think overall he's been pushed out of the team the second half because he hasn't been good enough, but there's also been a lot of tactical issues as well, but I don't think that necessarily means he is innocent. I think there are some times where he has made some quite poor mistakes. And a similar story's got to be for Gabriel Jesus. Now, there's some parts of the season where he's looked really good, and even in some games where he's come back. I mean, that Nottingham Forest game where he came back kind of just shows what sort of player he is. He misses an absolute sitter, but then scores an insane goal to get us 1-0 up. He's a player that is very much like that, has scored some really good goals, but only getting 4 league goals in the Premier League this season and still playing 2,000 minutes, I wouldn't say is brilliant, but his Champions League goals and games in that, when especially in the group stage, were very important. I think he really excelled in that as well. So that for me alone gets him an on and off season. I don't think he was very important. He didn't play enough, and I don't think he's really going to be a starter again for this team, but he has showed glimpses of why he should still be a squad player going into next season. But Gabriel Jesus is overall very frustrating player to watch play, and I just hope he does better next year. Now, before we get into the players that we are really interested in, I'll quickly do some of the ones that we need to get out of the way. So Reiss Nelson, he's played about 600 minutes, got 0 goals and 0 assists this season. I think he's looked alright when he's played, but he's not played enough, and he's not really good enough, is he? He's not as good as Saka, or not even comparably to the level, so we don't even give him any game time even when we should. And I think overall it's been a worse season than it was last year, when Nelson did prop up with some big goals and some big moments. So for me, it's an awful season for Reiss Nelson. Eddie Nketiah is a weird one. At the start of the year, he was playing a lot, hat-tricking at Sheffield. He scored in the first game of the season against Forest, but as we adapted and got better as the year went on with Havertz up front, he didn't even get a look in at all, and we'd play even Trossard ahead of it. But for that start of the season, I'm not going to forget it, so I'm going to say alright sometimes. Now, one of the reasons why these players haven't got many minutes that we just spoke about is because of Trossard's improvement in the team. Now, Trossard has been electric in the second half of the year. He barely got any looking in the first half, but came on and was important in some games, such as the Chelsea one. And I've said this multiple times, Trossard isn't brilliant at everything. I thought we saw this against Everton. On the ball, he's quite poor. He's quite poor at running. He isn't as good as Martinelli in these modes, but he just does score goals, which which is better than anyone else right now. His end-to-run season of scoring goals has been insane, and the fact he has played 2,200 minutes this season and managed to get 17 goals and 2 assists is incredible. He's our second top goal scorer in all competitions and has played the 10th most minutes, and you've got to argue that is a brilliant achievement. He scored some incredibly clutch goals when we needed to, and he's got that predatory instinct in the box which we have needed. Of course, we'd love for someone that was better at other things as well, but you can't argue with Trossard this season. He's done better than I think anyone expected, and overall I'd say it's one of the best for him. He's been one of the most crucial players in this run-in, and you can't argue with that. And you put that alongside Kai Havertz. Now, I have done about 400 million videos about Kai Havertz because it's a signing that is peculiar to everyone at the time and even halfway through the season. And I love him because it defines something that Arsenal are. Someone proving the doubters wrong and being able to achieve brilliant things, which we will do in the future. Havertz was criticised a lot at the start of the season, maybe a little bit unfairly because he didn't know what role he was playing, and a bit fairly because he wasn't brilliant. But since we've moved him to striker, he has been so much better. A lot of fans and I think a lot of pundits have been talking about the turning point being that Newcastle game where we did lose, but he showed a lot of aggression, and I think that's when the fans started to really side with him. And to me, in this run-in, he has been brilliant, and you can't argue with his stats this season. He's scored 14 goals, got 7 assists, but he's more than that. His pressing ability is brilliant, his off-the-ball work is amazing, and he really makes everyone around him better. He's been one of the best players for us this season, especially in the run in the last 4 months, which is when it mattered. And Havertz overall has been a brilliant signing and really redeemed his career. And of course, the last player is the star boy Bukayo Saka. Now, he has had a brilliant year, contrary to popular belief. A lot of people on Twitter criticise him a lot for doing basically nothing, and considering he gets 2-manned up on every game, he's managed to get 20 goals and 14 assists in all competitions, being a brilliant year. Now, his defensive work I think he puts in is crucial, and I do feel for him a lot of the times. He has proven to be a brilliant player when we needed him to. I do think the latter part of the season, again especially in the big games, he has kind of been a little bit disappointing in the majority of them compared to what I would like to see from Saka, but he always seems to drop off near the end of the season because Arteta I think plays him a little bit too much. I wouldn't say he's our player of the season though. I think he's been brilliant. I think he is probably our best player, probably our best attacker, but this season I'd give it to people like Rice who've come in, or even one of the defenders. I think our defense has been immense. So to me, Saka's one of the best players that we have, and I think he will continue to be for a long time, and I think he is going to keep getting more goals and assists every year. As long as we get the team better and get him a little bit more help out there, not being Reece Nelson, then I think it could be a lot better in the future for the club. Now, this is my overall tier list for Arsenal's season. I do think some of these players should be sold, which we'll get into another time. Overall, it's been a brilliant season, and the fact that we've got more players in one of the best or very important than overall the rest of the team shows how much really we're improving. And I think a lot of the alright sometimes and awful seasons are those squad players that we need to get better and pad out for the future. But let me know in the comments what you think, and let me know who your rankings are. Who is your best player? Who has let you down or been impressed more than you expected they would be? And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.